Okay, welcome. I'm sitting here in Ovingdean Hall with Dr. Kirsten Dickers, our head of sixth form. My name's Tess, I'm the principal here, so you're very welcome and thank you for joining us today. It started snowing outside a few minutes ago. So if you hear sort of excited noises from outside the window, that's the students. Some of our students have never seen snow before. So there's a lot of excitement here this morning, isn't there? We're going to spend some time in this session talking about various aspects of sixth form life here at OIC Brighton and exploring in particular the way in which we support our students to prepare for the next stage of their journey, which is for most of our students, university entry. So I'm very pleased to have Dr. Kirsten Dickers with us. Kirsten is our head of sixth form and careers, and Kirsten's background is in admissions at top universities, including Cambridge and Oxford, and in the natural sciences particularly. And so Kirsten's started with us this August and is responsible for our sixth formers' progress and big focus at the moment on UCAS and university entry processes, which I think you'll speak to during this session.
I will, yeah.
Extends not just to the sixth form, but also to our year 9, 10, 11 students with our career pathways programme, and with a real focus on identifying what our students' ambitions are and then really matching their experience and their skills development, their personal development to those. And that happens largely in our super curriculum, but really throughout our academic programme, ensuring that students are getting the right qualifications that they need, having the experiences and opportunities that will develop them to be really competitive applicants, both for university and for their chosen careers. So this is a continuous process from year 9 all the way through to year 13, but we're going to focus particularly on what that looks like for sixth form. And Kirsten's going to tell you a bit more about the specifics of preparing for university application.
Hey, so good morning, everyone. Apologies if I'm sipping water throughout this. I've got a very, very sore throat at the moment. So I'm just trying to make sure I don't start coughing and losing my voice. So as Tess said, we've really already started preparing students for university right from the moment they join us, but that does really ramp up in sixth form, and we put a lot more work in with them on finding the perfect fit for them, finding the right pathway. And so one of the things I'm going to be working on with year 12 in the coming months is thinking about applying to university and choosing the right universities for their aspirations, and thinking about the different options that they have. So I'm talking to them about which universities they can consider and looking at what's important to them. So first of all, thinking about the course that they want to do and understanding that the same course title can actually be very different at different universities. So I've been talking to them about making sure that they're really researching carefully and finding the course that has the perfect fit of topics that they're interested in, the learning style that suits them best. That again can differ in different universities. So we're looking at, first of all, choosing the right course and then finding 5 universities, because in the UK they can apply to up to 5 universities. So looking at the universities that are right for them in terms of aspirations, so having some that are definitely ambitious choices, that where they want to go, but also making sure that we have a sensible range of universities within their plan, so that we can keep their options open for them. And I will be talking to them about other factors that are important, and also arranging for some universities to come in and talk to our students later in this year. So we're going to have a university fair later in the year where universities will come into the college and meet students. And I've also been arranging for individual speakers to come in and talk to them as part of our Career Pathways programme. So next term, we've already had somebody this term talking about applications to the United States. And next term, we've got somebody coming in to talk about applications in Australia. And I'm arranging for someone to come in from Hong Kong University as well. So we're trying to make sure our students understand all the opportunities that are open to them, not just in the UK, but overseas as well.
And those choices are really varied by individuals, aren't they? So we were talking to somebody recently who was looking at medical courses in the UK in cheaper cities, because the cost of living is a big factor and it varies enormously between London and the northeast and so on. So there are various personal factors that we discuss with students, don't we, in terms of those decisions?
Yeah, it is very much. I think by the time students reach sixth form, it's a very individual process. They've all got their own interests, they've all got their own sort of priorities. And so there isn't really a one size fits all approach, which I think is why it's quite good that OICB is willing to support having a head of sixth form who doesn't have a teaching load as well, because it means that I have a lot of time to work individually with the students. As I said, we do support students applying to a wide range of countries. I think when I left my last school, I actually counted up the number of countries that I've helped students apply to, and I think we're in the 20s. I am missing South America at the moment, and I'm missing Africa. So if I have any students who want to apply there, that would be lovely. But the biggest countries, probably apart from the UK, we have a lot of experience, not just me, but other colleagues as well, and external support with applying to the United States. I have a lot of experience with Hong Kong, with Canada, Australia, the Netherlands, and some of the European business schools as well. So we've got students applying to a really wide range of countries. And so we can give them the advice based on what's going to be right for those countries. And as you can see on the slide, it does vary depending on where they apply. So for the UK, for the United States, 3 to 4 A levels is generally what we would advise. For the United States, they may have to do test preparation as well. For Hong Kong, they may, particularly for subjects like medicine, require 4 A-level subjects, and similarly for Singapore. And students also need to think about their language, and that's important too. So we can make sure that wherever a student applies, we can make sure they've got the right programme. And that's something I'll actually be talking to Year 11 about next week, and helping them to make those choices about sixth form subjects so they keep their options open and can access the courses they want.
So this week has been Sixth Form Experience Week for our Year 11s, and that's meant a variety of activities. They've had kind of an informal evening yesterday with the Sixth Form in the Sixth Form boarding house to speak to our current Sixth Form students about their experiences and their lessons and their subject choices and all the questions that they don't want to speak to us as teachers about. And tomorrow we have a multiple mini interview afternoon in which our healthcare and medical science pathway students have an opportunity for the type of interview structure that are used for lots of medical school applications, along with Year 13 students. This that you can see now is the kind of activity that we do with our students as we start to get them thinking about the way in which they communicate what it is that they're really passionate about. And this starts really early on because we want the students to have that university interview preparation, and thus the activity tomorrow afternoon. And obviously at this time of year, we're also preparing students for Oxbridge interviews that they have coming up in early December. So they have the experience, they've done the activity, but how do they articulate what it is that they've gained from that experience, or how it is that they have learnt from that, or that they can match that to what they're saying they're passionate about? Because we all know that it's easy to say, oh yes, I'm very good at this, or I'm very passionate about that, but how do you prove that with evidence? And so the example that's worked through on this slide is where a student has done an EPQ, and Kirsten will talk a bit more about the role of EPQ in our sixth form here at OIC Brighton later. And then how the work that they've done for that EPQ and the research they've carried out, in this instance in English literature, proves the love they have for their subject, proves the passion that they have. And this is something that we find, particularly for those competitive university entrance processes, is really important. How is the student showing that they've gone above and beyond to develop that interest and develop that particular area of specialism or particular passion. And it's something that our OIC Brighton students are really good at doing. They spend a lot of time, they show a lot of independence, they explore opportunities, and they are increasingly developing ways in which they can really articulate those passions. So this is something that we focus on a lot, not just with our sixth form students, but particularly as we get towards interview season, which we're now in. And another way that we do this is to make sure, as Kirsten's mentioned, that our visiting speaker programme and our opportunities off campus really match with our students' ambitions. So Biograd, that you can see there, is a good example of something that's available to our sixth form students. And they go recently to Liverpool University. So they have opportunities to get into professional labs or undergraduate style labs and to explore what it means to be a biomedical student. And so those kinds of opportunities are invaluable. You can see there a speaker who came to talk to a group of interested sixth forms about computer science, and particularly about MIT. So those are students who are really focused on MIT, very keen on studying computing in some form. And our visiting speaker, who works in Cambridge admissions, has worked in the US and does computer programming professionally, was able to talk to them about all of the things they can do beyond the curriculum, things they can access online, programming languages that they can learn independently, the types of things that they should be doing independently outside of their curriculum, to really develop that passion and to be able to prove their skills and interests. And as you can see, if you've got good eyesight, Tejas, our computer science teacher, was also on the call. So he's able to say, okay, well, this is what we offer in A-level computer science. And then these are the kinds of activities we need to make sure our students are going off and doing to really prove their commitment and motivation. Having a visiting speaker from a medical profession is also really invaluable. In fact, this same doctor is coming to run the MMIs with us tomorrow. And that's a really good example of someone saying, these are the different types of medical degrees that exist. These are different teaching styles that you will encounter at those different medical schools. And this is why it's not always best to go straight for the one that you see at the top of the league table. So in her case, she had turned down a place at Imperial because she wanted to go to St George's. Now, our students would tend to think, well, you know, you get an offer from Imperial, go to Imperial, but actually the style of teaching and the way in which the medical course is organised wasn't suitable for this individual. Her preference was to be very practical, to be hospital-based, and to be learning in that way, and that's what St George's offers. So really bespoke advice for our students to ensure that they're making really informed choices about what's going to suit them individually. Anything else about the experience of trips like Biograd for our students?
No, I mean, I think they are really useful. I have to say, having come into the school this year, one thing I have noticed is that the personal statements that our students are writing for their UK applications and the level of independent work and of reflection on that independent work that they're showing is very good. I've read an awful lot of personal statements in my time at Cambridge. Probably, I think I counted up, I think we're close to 16,000. So I'm used to seeing good personal statements and seeing a wide range. And actually, I do think our students are producing very good, reflective personal statements, very academic, because of the experiences they've had. And so I think things like the Biograd trip that some of our year 12 students have already been on, also ProEd, which was a course that some of our current year 13 students did over the summer, again, sort of focused career and work experience, was really helpful for them. We try to give students a really wide range of opportunities, and we also encourage them and support them to find opportunities themselves, because one thing that universities tend to look at, particularly for some of the courses like medicine and healthcare courses, is they want to see the students being proactive and organising things themselves, not waiting for things that are done for them. And so part of what we do, as well as providing lots of experience for them, is encourage them and help them to think about how can they find things themselves. And so one of our students this week actually, and this week we had a student go and do some physiotherapy work experience. A couple of weeks ago, We had somebody go off to a local farm to do some veterinary work experience. And those were both placements that the students organised independently, which looks great on their applications, but with support from us in terms of finding a place and how to go about approaching the owners and the people to make sure that they were successful in finding those places. So recently, as I said, we've had veterinary, we've had physiotherapy. Over Enrichment Week, we had some students go to do some architecture work experience at a local firm, which they absolutely loved. We've had students doing things like banking, dentistry, engineering. So lots of opportunities for them to get out into the workplace and explore what the subject actually involves. Also over Enrichment Week, we had some of our students go to MIT and they attended a Nord Anglia sort of global STEAM conference. And so there were all sorts of activities that they got to take part in during that week. So that was a really good opportunity for some of our aspiring science students. Actually, next Friday, I'm taking a group of Year 11 and Year 12 students to a science convention at Benenden School. So they've been producing posters on science topics as part of that, and they're going to be able to display their posters and attend some talks next week. And then we also have students who go further afield. So we've got some students who are looking at some volunteering overseas during the summer, so going to Nepal and doing some volunteering there. The other thing that I use extensively with our students is an online platform called Unifrog. It's a very comprehensive platform, so it allows them to do things like psychometric testing, so they can look at things like how their personality, their interests, their aspirations might match on to future university and career aspirations. So it gives them some guidance, some advice, but the other thing they can do on Unifrog then is actually start to search for future opportunities. So our Year 12 and 13 students have been using it to actually start making shortlists of universities, both in the UK and overseas, that suit their preferences. They can also search for MOOCs, massive open online courses, so they can look for wider research opportunities. They can take part in courses to enhance their applications. And the other thing they can do on Unifrog is create a log of everything they've done. And that's something I've been working with even the younger students on, is actually logging all of their experiences and reflection on those using the CAR method that we talked about. So that when they come to write their university applications, they've actually got a reminder in one place of everything they've done. And that's been, I think, for some of them really helpful to look back and actually see how much they have achieved during the time they've been here.
So the MIT conference is an annual event that's open to our Year 12 students. So current Year 11 students will be asked to submit applications. It's a selective process because it's obviously a very popular course. And so that will happen again next October for those who will then be in Year 12. And the Projects Abroad volunteering is also a sixth form focus that happens in the summer that we plan to do every year, but we tailor it towards different students' needs.
We also had a student go to a UNICEF conference, I think, last year. From memory.
Yeah. So to speak a bit more about what's unique about the sixth form experience here at OIC Brighton, I want to give you some examples of current sixth form students. So importantly, we know that the sixth form needs to prepare students for the increased independence that they will have at university. And there are various ways in which that happens. Some of it is to do with the school rules and not wearing uniform, but it's also to do with the fact that their timetable has a bit more flexibility depending on how many subjects and additional courses they're doing. They may have independent study periods in which they need to be able to manage their own time effectively. And we try and give them that kind of bespoke flexibility in the day. They start to learn about how they study best, when they study best, where they study best. We have requests for students to go and work in libraries, maybe in Brighton, for example, or to access the university library at the University of Sussex so that they can develop their research. And those kinds of things are really important developments towards university readiness. Cheryl's a great example of somebody who's got a very busy timetable, does multiple A-level subjects, as well as her EPQ and global perspectives. But this all suits her in terms of her ambition to study land economy. I think that's developed from law. And she's had opportunities to attend master classes at universities, to visit the local coroner's court and local law court, and to establish a law society here at OIC Brighton. And so those kinds of opportunities and leadership opportunities, which are increasingly focused in the sixth form, give our students a really strong grounding for their future career pathways. Vicky is another really good example of this. Again, somebody with a busy and timetable, and who's taken on leadership opportunities within our student leadership programs in the sixth form as head of the college council. She was able to get EXIAC from college to go and attend a London genetics conference. And that's the kind of flexibility that we offer to individual students to ensure that they're getting those kind of chances. She has just heard that she's got her Oxford interview in early December, which is really exciting, though I think she's probably prefers to go to the US.
She's also applied to the US. Vicky's also recently, so she's very, very interested in genetics, and she's actually talked with our head of science, and she's doing I think it's pretty much university level, I'm not even sure if it's first year or second year, gene transfer experiment that Vicky really wanted to have a go at. And she talked to our head of science, she's researched what she needed to do, and she's actually working on this over the next few months. She's going to look at transplanting a gene from one organism into another. So that's a really great opportunity for Vicky to really stretch herself way beyond what she's doing at A-level, but do something that she's really passionate about.
I think it's a jellyfish gene.
Yeah, and it's going into a plant, I think. I don't know.
It's bubbling away at the back of one of the science labs, and the year 10 students were obviously very excited about it. So it meant that there was conversation about this degree level genetics going on with year 10 students as well, thanks to that sixth form leadership and extension. Henry's another great example of what the sixth form here at OIC Brighton can do for your child. Henry is doing 4 subjects. He's very passionate about chemistry, but he's very passionate about computing and AI. And he's particularly interested in the way in which AI will develop our understanding, and particularly modelling in chemistry. This has led him to do a range of interesting activities and extension activities, including recently a lecture to the science department and to his peers and other students that was particularly focused on the way in which AI modelling can be used to better understand the structure of chemical compounds and I think enzymes. And his personal statement is a good example of what Kirsten was saying earlier, in the way in which the OIC Brighton programme enables our students to develop this range of activities so that we can really see the different things that students can do outside of the curriculum. Henry's personal statement, and I'm not a chemist or a computer scientist, so Kirsten probably understood it much more than I did, but he spoke about the way in which his passion for origami had given him a kind of pattern in his mind for better understanding the way in which complex structures sort of fold in on themselves. And it was such a beautifully expressed personal statement, and it was so unique to Henry and his academic passions. And it was absolutely evidenced by all the things that he's been able to do, the grades that he's achieved. He got 4 A's at AS, which is referred to on the slide here. And that's really a really good example of just a very impressive profile that's been enhanced and developed through his time in the sixth form, and now puts him, we think, in very good stead for his top choice of university.
One of the things that we do in the sixth form is that students have the opportunity to take part in various academic competitions. So we do things like the UK Maths Challenge, some of the American Maths Challenges. We've had some amazing results in those. Biology Olympiads, Chemistry Olympiads, and Henry was one of our students who took part in the Cambridge Chemistry Challenge. And he achieved the top award in that, the Röntgenium Award, and it was an amazing, I think there was something like 20,000 entrants, and Henry achieved a really high mark in that, and as a result of that was invited to attend a summer school for selected students at Cambridge. So he did that just before term started, and he came back really excited, really enjoyed his time there.
So it's a really good example of the way in which the enrichment programme just enhances what the students are doing academically and then makes them really successful applicants for university. And there are quite a few of those competitions that are only available for sixth form students. So the essay competitions at Oxbridge, for example, become a big focus for our Year 12 students, particularly in the humanities. Mara is currently in year 12, having successfully completed our one-year GCSE programme last year. And Mara is a recipient of our sixth form scholarship, which I'll speak to you a little bit about a bit later. As you can see, she achieved a fantastic set of GCSE results with us here last year. Mara is a good example of someone who has a very specific aim in mind. She wants to study at MIT. She wants to study computer-related courses at MIT. She's had the opportunity to apply to go to MIT, and she was there over October. She came back and said, it's just confirmed that that is her dream university, and she's enabled to do the things that will continue to enhance that profile and that application. It's her academic outcomes, it's her leadership of chess. She's the world champion, but she's able to have that flexibility to attend competitions. It's her opportunities to go to MIT through our Nord Anglia collaboration, and it's an opportunity to speak to people like our visiting speaker about MIT applications and what that looks like. So really exciting work, supported by our academic scholarship programme and enhanced by the various opportunities that we have as a result of being part of the Nord Anglia group of schools. So we're really excited about what the future holds for Mara. We have AS results. Of course, this year is our first year of A-level, and so it'll be really exciting to share what this first group of Year 13 students achieved, but they did brilliantly in their AS examinations last summer. Our students will start, for those who are currently in Year 11, selecting now what their A-level subjects are going to be. We encourage students to take 4 A-levels here at OIC Brighton. They make indicative subject selections next spring, and then we will ask them to review those in the light of their GCSE results next August. And some of that happens during Head Start, which we'll talk to as well. It may be a little small to see, but we do, of course, have exciting updates from our current Year 13s in terms of applications. So Kirsten can just run you through to give you a sense of the range of where our students are applying to.
Yes, absolutely. So as you can see, we've had 17 students apply to Oxbridge. Interestingly, 15 to Cambridge, 2 to Oxford. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with both myself and Gemma and Tess all having gone to Cambridge. I hope
we're not prejudiced, no bias.
We're really not. I have worked at Oxford too. And we've got a really good range of subjects within that. So we've had students applying for sciences, maths, engineering, chemistry, as you heard about, computer science, natural sciences, but we've also got people applying for things like history, land economy. So it's a really wide range of subjects, and we're helping to prepare them for those at the moment. So several of them have now received invitations to interview, and we're setting up. We've already given them some preparation with an external organisation, and we're now setting up an interview exchange with our sister school, OIC in Oxford. The idea of that is that it's really useful for students to have a practice at being interviewed by somebody they don't know. So rather than having practices with their teachers who they're quite comfortable with, they're going to have a practice with OIC's teachers, and OIC students are going to have a practice with us. So that we find is a really good way of getting them used to that interview situation. And they're going to have some practices with us in school as well, with subject specialists. So they're going to have lots of preparation before they go for their real interview. But we've also had students applying. So our early applicants have included people applying for medicine and veterinary medicine. And within certainly medicine, we've had a really wide range of choices. So our students have been quite selective and quite careful when they're choosing. And as Tess said, they've been thinking not just about where's best in the league table, but which is the right environment for them to study in. So they've been looking really closely at the style of teaching and the things like the level of patient contact and how they're assessed, how often they're going to be in hospitals, and how practical and hands-on the course is. And so they've made some really, really good selections of medical schools. And we've already had several invitations to interview, including one student who's apparently going to have to fly up to Aberdeen at some point. So that's going to be tricky. We've also had a lot of our students, our early entrants, as well as applying to Oxford or Cambridge, they might have chosen to apply to UCL or Imperial College or LSE as well. So we've been supporting those applicants. And we've supported them through the process because many of these students have actually had to do admissions tests as well. So again, they receive preparation classes for their admissions tests. And then the rest of our students, the ones who didn't have to apply early, they are submitting their applications. And again, we're seeing a really wide range of universities reflecting their interests and the courses that they want to do. So it's been really interesting to see.
Yes, we look forward to sharing the good news when those offers start rolling in January. I mentioned Head Start. This is a programme specific to our new Year 11 one-year course. So some of you may have students who've been through that. And for the sixth form. In 2025, this will be from the 26th of August to the 2nd of September, so a one-week intensive programme with a very specific focus for Year 12, which is on starting to think about their UCAS, particularly thinking about EPQ and making sure that they're getting that academic enrichment as well as settling in and induction and visiting careers pathway speakers. In Year 13, this becomes a very specific UCAS university preparation process, because what we've seen is that students who leave that a bit late, it tends to disrupt to some extent their focus on their academic studies in this first term of Year 13. So what our intention is to get UCAS all of the work that they need to do out of the way as far as is possible during the Head Start programme. So that's an important part of the course for our sixth form students. For those going into Year 12, like your children, I mentioned earlier about the subject selection process. So what we do is we take an indication of what their likely subject choices are going to be, and we give them a lot of guidance about what makes a good combination of A-level subjects, what makes a good fourth subject if they're not sure. And the Unifrog platform that Kirsten mentioned really helps students to talk them through if they want to study chemistry, which A-level subject should they do, and so on. So a lot of that work is done during Year 11. But of course, the final piece of that puzzle is to see how they do at their GCSEs. And they get their results during August. And so Head Start is placed immediately after the receipt of their GCSE results, so that they can then review those with the academic team here and say, OK, in the light of those exam results, this is going to be the right selection of subjects for me. And so that's something that we give them really strategic advice about at that point. So Head Start is really important. We tend to see a number of subject changes in the first month of Year 12. We think this is completely normal. There is a very big step up from GCSE to A-level. And students have been really well prepared for GCSEs. They've done really well in their GCSEs. But the A-level course is challenging. And for those students, new students who join us from outside of OIC Brighton and therefore may not have done GCSEs previously, it's about making sure that this is the right course for them, it's the right subject for them, and they've made the right selections. So we finalise subject decisions, we get the timetable finalised for each individual student, but then we do have a review period during which we necessarily have some changes and moves, and that we consider to be completely normal for the very beginning of sixth form. What we don't want to do is to continue that process much into the autumn term, because we then need our students to focus on their studies and be making progress in their different subjects. So we try to limit those requests for changes or drops or alterations to their courses to that early part of Year 12. But it is a normal part of the process. And as parents, you would always be involved in those conversations about students' subject choices. We'll talk a little bit about boarding. Kirsten has a role in Abacus House, which is our off-campus sixth form boarding house, so can speak to this a little bit as well. We have Turing House here on campus, which is all year 12 and 13 students with both boys and girls, separate accommodation. We have Ovingdean Hall, just above where we're sitting at the moment, which is our newest boarding house here on campus, and that's for year 11 and 12 girls. And we have Abacus House, which is in Brighton, which is only for year 12 and 13 students, so it has much more of a pre-university sort of sixth form feel, with individual rooms, so single ensuite rooms and shared kitchen areas, so the students are given that sort of taste of university life. So it's really important that students in the sixth form feel that they're able to live independently and look after themselves, but it's a kind of it's a compromise where we also insist that they are, you know, having their meals in college, and that they're looked after, that they're going to bed sensibly, that they have a sensible relationship with their online behaviours. So it's not the complete freedom that they look forward to in university, and some of our year 13s start to feel like they'd like even more independence. But we try and strike a balance between trusting them and giving them the independence to go into Brighton or travel independently, whilst also ensuring that they're safe and protected at all times, and that they do get the support they need to focus on their studies during these important years.
Abacus House is a really nice house, actually, and I think the communal kitchens are lovely. And I found it very interesting. So when I worked at university, one of my jobs was allocating accommodation for my first year students at Cambridge. And I found it really interesting that most of them, what they wanted when they arrived at university, they were all obsessed with having an ensuite room. All of our rooms at Cambridge were single rooms, but they all wanted en suites. Very interestingly, by the end of the first year, when they were choosing their accommodation for the second year, they didn't care about ensuite bathrooms anymore. What they wanted, the sort of most selected rooms for the second year, were in the ones that had big communal kitchens where they could all sit and talk and socialise. And I think that their priorities really changed, and they realised that what they enjoyed was that opportunity to get together with friends who might be studying other subjects and actually have that chance to socialise as well.
We have had to run some food hygiene training.
We have, yes.
So it's great to see students wanting to prepare meals together and cook together, for example, at the weekends. But some of them need to develop their washing up skills, let's put it that way. Yes. So increasingly in the sixth form, as I mentioned, independence in terms of being able to go out into the local area, to being supported with work experience and other exeats. We've mentioned students who need to go off and join a competition or go to a conference, and we really try and enable that. They can pop out of campus in the evenings or out of Abacus in the evenings if they need to go and get some groceries or get a haircut and so on. And we try and manage that as flexibly as possible, whilst also not distracting anyone from their studies. We make sure that there are independent study areas here on campus, and that students have got that flexibility to choose where works for them. And I mentioned leadership opportunities. We've got a big student council election here next week, and the students, often the sixth form students, are the ones really leading that, and we anticipate that our head students this year again will be members of the sixth form. But really important for them to show that level of leadership, and we often remind our year 12 and 13 students in assemblies that they set the tone, they are the role models, they are the students that others follow. Their behaviour impacts the behaviour of the younger students. The things that they choose to do, the decisions they make, and the successes they have are shared by the whole college community. And so last night's a good example of that, where the year 11 students can talk to year 12 and 13 students about sixth form, and we know that they listen far more to their older peers than they do to us as adults. So it's really lovely to see them developing into leaders at that age as well.
Okay, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the EPQ that we offer in the sixth form. So the EPQ, or Extended Project Qualification, is an independent research project that students can do. It's assessed and marked, and in terms of how it's viewed, it officially counts as half an A-level. Universities tend to treat it in different ways. So all universities really like the EPQ in terms of the skills that it teaches students, because it's exactly the kind of skills that they are looking for and are going to really help them at university. So understanding how to research, understanding how to evaluate what they're reading and come to a critical judgment on it, being able to write an academic report or essay, managing a project in their time. Some universities actually will not necessarily make the EPQ part of a conditional offer to students, but they will often make it an alternative offer. So they might say to a student, if you're taking an EPQ, we will accept slightly lower grades at A level. So maybe AAA at A level or AAB with an A and an EPQ. So it can help them in that sense in meeting university requirements. Others of them don't do that, but they do really value the EPQ and they like the skills it brings, as I said. So it's a really good thing to have in their application. And it also allows them to write really reflectively and analytically in their personal statement, because often students who've done an EPQ will talk a little bit about that in their personal statement. So Henry, as a good example, who we talked about earlier, and he's talked in his personal statement about the research that he's done, and he's been able to talk about where he's been researching, what he's been looking at, the conclusions that he's drawn. So it can really help in that sense with applying to university. The EPQ is very much an independent project, so there are actually quite strict limits on how much help and support we're allowed to give the students with this. There are various elements to it. So there's a taught course that we have to do, and that's part of the qualification. So that will be running throughout year 12 and into year 13. There will be sessions on things like how to choose an academic research question and how to refine it, how to search the literature, how to evaluate what they've found, conducting different types of research, quantitative, qualitative. So there's all sorts of different elements that we include in that. And that's part of the qualification. The other part is that the students have to then come up with their own question. It has to be something that is not directly related to what they've studied at A level. So they can't take a topic that they've covered at A level and write an EPQ on that. It needs to be something sufficiently different. They will then, working together with a supervisor who's allocated to them, they will refine that question. So often what I find is students come up with something that is incredibly broad. So one of my students a couple of years ago, his EPQ topic initially was religious wars in Europe. Now that's a huge topic, and there is no way that he was going to be able to cover that in depth in a 5,000 word essay. So what I worked with him to do was refine his question, be a little bit more specific, looking at a specific war, looking at specific outcomes of that, so that he could write a really strong analytical essay. The other thing is that the essay needs to be an evaluation. It needs to be something that's evaluative. They need to actually analyse the information they found, not just summarise it. So we work with them on that. But the students then independently go ahead and research their essay. They write their essay with support and guidance from the supervisor. But again, as I said, that is limited by the exam board. They produce their essay. They also have to give a presentation on what they've researched. And then really importantly, there's a logbook that they have to fill in. And that logbook is basically a reflection on the project. So there are various points, there are review points. They have to evaluate not just the success of their project, but what they've learned from it, what they could have done differently. So it's a really good project for assisting them prepare for university, but also helping their university applications. Sorry, I'm going to have some water.
We find that the EPQ just gives the students that opportunity we referred to earlier to articulate their passions, because it has to be something that goes beyond their A-level curriculum. It often leads them to really focus in detail on something that actually they wouldn't normally come across until undergraduate or beyond, whether that's a specific illness that they're interested in the current research and cures for, or whether it's a specific engineering challenge that they don't think has yet been tackled. And so they're able to do this independent, often original work. And it gives them what we'd refer to as like a mastermind subject, a real specialism that we know they're often speaking to in some detail at university interview stage. And so real range of interesting topics. We've got a student at the moment who's completing a chemistry experiment as part of the EPQ about the removal of toxic waste and oil from seawater. And that's a practical experiment that's the outcome of his project. We've had students researching gut microbiomes and how modern companies offering opportunities to explore those for patients are or are not medically sound. And in the past, we've supported students who've done all kinds of things, from go-karting to writing a play. Some of our Year 11s will have experienced this with the HPQ, which is the kind of GCSE equivalent of an EPQ, and that's really good grounding. So it's really great that our Year 11s do that, because it gives them a sense of what the EPQ will be like. But it is hard, and it requires an enormous amount of self-discipline and sticking power. And that's why, again, in Head Start, to get the students thinking about it, presenting on stuff that they've looked at over the summer, and then starting to get that ball rolling is really beneficial. I'd like to tell you a bit about the sixth form scholarship opportunity that we have for our Year 11 students. There is a Q&A button that you should be able to see on your screens, so feel free to add any questions you might have in there, because we're going to have a few minutes to be able to answer your questions. So do use the Q&A icon if you'd like to ask us any questions about the sixth form experience here at OIC Brighton. So for the sixth form scholarship, we're looking for students who've got really excellent academic performance and behaviour and attendance records from their time with us in Year 11 or even previously, and really good engagement with our super curriculum and wider opportunities. And so we'll be looking at the performance in internal assessments, so their skips, their midterms, their mocks. We'll be looking at their behavioural and attendance records and their records of their supercurricular involvement. And we want to see their potential for outstanding IGCSE grades based on the target grades that they're working on at the moment and the baseline data that we have for them. And they will be asked to submit a personal statement. And then they will be invited to an interview, and the personal statements are due on the 25th of November. And then we'll be having interviews after that at the end of this month. So Year 11 students have been advised about this, and we look forward to receiving their applications for this academic scholarship for current Year 11s. In terms of entry requirements, not for the scholarship application, but for A-level entry from Year 11, we're looking particularly at the expected outcomes in their GCSE results for those subjects that they wish to continue at A-level, and for overall performance at GCSE or expected performance at GCSE. We do, of course, look at English levels, but for our internal applicants, then we already know that what their English levels are. But it is really important that they're meeting those requirements in order to succeed at A-level. So that would be something that we always look at contextually for internal applicants in terms of their progress during their time with us at OICB. So I would like to open up to any questions that you might have, and we'd be very happy to answer. So do feel free to use that Q&A to just type in any questions that you've got about the sixth form here, and we'll give you a few minutes to do so. And we're very happy to answer your questions. Can you tell us a bit more about what an MMI is, Kirsten, and what that looks like for students?
Yes, so I'll do that. So MMI, multiple mini interviews, are interview system that quite a lot of medical and healthcare courses have moved to using. So rather than a traditional interview where maybe someone's sitting together with sort of sitting with two interviewers and just having a discussion. MMIs would be, there would be shorter stations, as we call them. So students would circulate round and they'd probably meet maybe 6 to 10 different interviewers for a shorter amount of time. So the stations can last, it can be just a few minutes at each station. And each one would have a different task for the students to do that's assessing an aspect of their medical application and something that's important for the interviewers to know about. So at one station, they might be asked to do a role play involving perhaps dealing with a difficult scenario, having to break bad news to a patient, for example. At another one, they might be handed a graph or some data and asked to interpret it to check their data analysis skills. At another one, they might be presented with some sort of ethical scenario and asked to discuss that. They can also be quite unusual. So a few years ago, I had a veterinary applicant, and one of her MMI questions was, she was given a drawing of a shape, and she had to tell the interviewer who had his back to her, she had to give him instructions to get him to draw the same shape on the paper. And so the point of that was checking her ability to give really clear, precise instructions and ambiguous instructions that were going to get the same shape drawn. So they can be slightly unusual things like that, but they're all testing the kind of personal qualities and skills that medical students need. And a lot of medical schools like this because they feel that having these shorter stations and having more interviewers interact with the students is giving them a better overall picture of what the student can do. So that's what we're going to be doing on Friday. We've got 6 stations for our students to circulate round. We have various people coming in. So one of our former speakers is coming in and various other external interviewers, and they're each going to run one of the stations. So it should be a really good experience. So it's going to be great for our Year 13 students because they're going to get some practice before their real interviews. But we're offering it also to our Year 11 students who are interested in healthcare, just to give them a feel for what that's going to look like in the future and to show them really what we can do to support them and what they will be doing the next year and in the coming years.
Yeah, really good experience, quite intense, I think, for our students.
Absolutely.
So we run that twice a year, one for as a general experience for students so that everyone can have a go at that and just practice being put on the spot and interviewed. And then this one, which is very specific to those applying for medicine. I've had a question as to how many scholarships are available. There are 2 sixth form scholarships available for current Year 11 students. Okay, well, in that case, I'd like to just really thank you for your time in joining us. Wish us luck with the snowy conditions. We have a whole college cross-country event this afternoon, and the sixth formers have been very busy raising charitable donations and sponsorship for that. So it's a really great fundraiser, but rather cold here to do that today. And we are, of course, really happy to answer any questions arising about the sixth form or progression requirements or the scholarship process. So do feel free to reach out to our admissions team or directly to Kirsten or myself if you have any further questions about your individual circumstances. Otherwise, we really look forward to those scholarship processes, but also to welcoming your students for the sixth form here at OIC Brighton. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.